The update is just dropped inside of Diablo Immortal, and the question is this: was your class nerfed, or was it buffed, or does it kind of sit where it is? Because we have a ton of changes coming to all of the classes, to their skills as well as their essences. While I discuss this, we'll talk about the new returning game mode that just dropped inside of the game, Trial of the Hordes. You can just kind of watch that as we go through these notes, starting with the Wizard. The Wizard had changes to the meteor. Radius is increased from 2.5 yards from 2. Projectile movement speed is also increased. This is a great change for Wizards. Honestly, most of the changes that we're looking at here today are positive changes for the classes. We got to figure out which ones got the most positive changes. Arcane Wind, cooldown reduced to 6 seconds from 9, and charges increased by 1. Massive change there, probably because no one really uses Arcane Wind. Next up is Frostfield, cooldown reduced to 16 seconds from 20 seconds. Effect delay reduced to 1 second from 1.2, plus the casting range has been increased. 3 changes to skills for the Wizard. But let's talk about the items, and we have 7 classes to go through today. Arcane Intensifiers. Disintegrate charges increased by 1. Wait, disintegrate charges? I thought that it was just like a channeling type thing. Okay, increased by 1. Vision of the Frozen Path. Crown of the Arcane Truth. Scorch, man, that is the longest piece of gear name if I've ever seen one. Scorch charges increased by 1. I like that. I actually used to enjoy utilizing Scorch when I was the Wizard, so getting another charge is always going to be a huge buff and something that's going to make you really consider playing as that class. Veta's Resourceful Countenance. Charges increased by 1. Charges of what? I don't even know, because I'm not playing as the Wizard right now. Frostwalker's Fragments upon Fragments. Meteor cooldown reduced to 6 seconds from 9. Wow. Projectile movement speed is also increased, so you're going to be able to be more accurate with your drops. Frostwalkers, meteor radius increased to 2.5 yards from 2. Now, we talked about the skills up above. This is also something that's, I guess, coming from the essences as well. Interesting. That's actually weird, because they already increased the radius of the meteor above in the skills itself. So that one doesn't seem to make much of a change at all, since the meteor radius is already upgraded from the skills upgrade. Robes of the Avalanche. Ray of Frost can now be channeled while moving. Love that. I used to hate that about the Wizard. That's why I always used to say the Wizard was so slow, because you have to, for Ray of Frost and for Disintegrate, you would just have to stand still. I love that you can utilize it while moving now. That's going to be kind of cool to see. Kin's Cryoclasp. Ray of Frost charges increased by 1. Quiet Downpour. Lightning Nova can be cast while moving. The Fang Stadnik. Arcane Wind cooldown reduced to 6 seconds from 9, and the charges are increased by 1. And that again was upstairs, shown up above. I wonder why they're showing it in both items and up above as well. I'm going to see if that's a trend as we go through all of these. Spars of Energy. Teleport cooldown reduced to 15 seconds from 30. Nice. Rift Carver. Arcane Torrent no longer targets invisible enemies. Damage reduced by 9%. Looks like you got a little bit of a nerf to that one there. Let's read the developer's note. Riftcrafter's Chaotic Orb had the ability to track invisible targets, which felt overly strong and a little unfair. We felt that only visible enemies should be targeted. Fair enough. All right, now we're getting to the class which is my favorite, the Barbarian. Let's see what kind of changes is coming to my boy. Hammer of the Ancients, charges increased by 1, and projectile movement speed is increased. This is the second Hammer of the Ancients buff that we've been seeing come to the game for the Barbarian. Leap. Oh, this is great. I use Leap. Animation speed increased. You can now leap over walls with improved collision detection. Leap is one of the main parts of my Leapfrog build, or I should say Y-Try's Leapfrog build for the Barbarian. I'm currently playing as the Blood Knight inside of the game, but we all know that Barbarian is what I call home. We will be returning to the Barbarian Get a little Macy over here, a little Macy action. See, she's just hanging out this morning with us. Good girl. All right, back to what matters. Let's take a look at these barbarian items. I'm just gonna read the changes that are happening, not the name of the piece of gear. You can see the name of it yourself. Demoralize cooldown reduced to 9 seconds from 12. Charges are increased by 1. I don't really use demoralize. Demoralize range increased to 10 yards from 8. We have demoralize range increased from 6 yards to 5. You think they want us to start utilizing demoralize, huh? All right, now we have multiple different pieces of items here. Chain spear charges increased by 1. Projectile movement speed is also increased. Now this is multiple pieces of gear like the Forgotten, Razor Grip, Breaker's Wheel piece. So it's something that affects all of the gear. That answers my question about the wizard piece up above with the long name. That was actually multiple pieces of gear. Charges increased by 1, all from all of those pieces right there. Maximum damage increased by 20%. Persistent ground damage effect increased by 20% that you're getting from Razor Grip. Berserker's Wheel animation speed is increased. Peace and Quietus. Projectile speed increased and movement speed increased when rushing towards your hammer. What is that, the one where you throw your Hammer of the Ancients instead of having it slam down? Possible. Animal Instinct, Shocking Chaos, animation speeds are increased. You can now leap over walls with improved collision detection. And Animal Instinct, maximum charges increased by 20%. So obviously the way that they're breaking this down is based on how the skills are changed from multiple different pieces of gear. They're not exactly mentioning what the skill or the change is. It seems like right now there was nothing that was nerfed on the Barbarian, only things that would benefit the build, while the Wizard did receive the 1 nerf to attacking invisible enemies. Let's take a look at the Monk right now with maybe the least of all yet. Wave Strike, maximum damage increased by 14% and cooldown reduced to 6 seconds from 9, and Inner Sanctuary, cooldown reduced to 20 seconds from 30. Now, it's worth noting that Kevin, I had Kevin on my channel maybe 2 months back with his PvP Monk build. It was a tanking build, and he just told me this morning that he put a build together for the Monk that literally tanked the entire team inside of Battlegrounds, and he was able to maintain his life while tanking for his teammates. Unbelievable stuff. He has the tankiest Monk build I have ever seen, only probably pulling in 1 kill in a Battlegrounds, but being able to tank everything for his teammates to come in and make those kills. We may be featuring that build soon on the channel from Kevin. We have Monk items. Wave Strike cooldown is reduced to 6 seconds from 9 with those couple of pieces of gear. Wave Strike attack animation speed is increased. Now, we don't care about the animation speeds, right? Like, that's not something that's huge for us, but it is a change. Wave Strike cooldown reduced to 12 from 20. Nearly half the time on the cooldown. That's massive. Flying Kick charge time reduced to a half of a second from 1. Maximum damage increased by 15% and charges by 2. So far, if you ask me, the Monk has so far been the biggest buff yet. Flying Kick damage to shielded enemies increased by 350% from 250, an additional 100%. Inner Sanctuary cooldown reduced to 20 from 30. Inner Sanctuary cooldown reduced from 24 to 30 from Solace of the Peaks. Then we have Inner Sanctuary reduced to 14 seconds from 20. So Inner Sanctuary is going to be able to reduce down to almost nothing. I'm exaggerating, but you know what I mean. Wave of the Light's Bell now affects enemy players by preventing them from entering or exiting an area. So the bell is going to act as a roadblock. And Flying Dragon range increased to 2.5 yards from 2. Attack animation speed is also increased. This Monk seems like a tanking beast. May not be an assassin pulling in all the kills, but is going to have the ability to do a lot of tanking for teammates. Moving on to the Demon Hunter skills, Knife Trap. Now you can be thrown at a targeted location. Oh, that's cool. You can actually target where you throw a Knife Trap. I actually did not recall that you couldn't do that already. I'm glad that we can now. And Daring Swing, which everyone uses, you can now leap over walls with improved collision detection, much like the Barbarian. I wonder if they added something into the game that improved the tech they had there for collision detection. It's possible. Now, some Demon Hunter items. Multi-shot now deals decreased damage to shielded enemies to 350 from 250. More damage. Knockback shot. Base damage increased by 25%. Burn damage increased by 43%. Movement is less restricted while channeling, allowing for easier turning and rotation, which is great for one of the most agile classes inside of the game already. We now have smokescreen projectile speed is increased. Smokescreen cooldown reduced from 6 to 9 seconds. Again, I don't think many people use smokescreen. Smokescreen charge is increased by 1. Wow, lots of buffs there as well. I do like how Blizzard does this. Rather than nerfing a class because it's too strong, what they typically will do is buff the classes so that things become more balanced. It's a better, more feel-good experience for the gamer, because if I invest so much time into the essences and build on my class, and then they nerf the heck out of it, it makes you feel bad. Buff everything else to make it all kind of more even, it just feels less bad. Let's move right on over here again. Leggards of the inevitable inferno intended. Oh, these are all the names of the pieces of gear. Wow, lots of pieces of gear there. Knife trap can now be thrown at a targeted location. Knife trap damage is increased by 100%. Damage increased by 23%. Immobilizing duration increased to 4 seconds from 3. Wow, so you're getting longer duration right there from the clutching nails item. Damage done by 21% movement speed increased briefly after casting. Damage reduction from being hit multiple times is reduced to 50 from 75. Nice as well. That one's from Scrap Backs. We have the pot boiler. Enemies struck by multiple knife traps at once no longer take 50% reduced damage from subsequent hits. So now it seems they're gonna be taking 100% damage from every single hit, which I love. And smoke screens cooldown reduced to 12 from 20, recloaking while the smoke has been reduced to 0.25 from 0.5. So it looks like smoke screen, massive buff there from the Demon Hunter. Demon Hunter's looking good. I still think the Monk has the #1 in buffs so far, but we are not done. We have Crusader, Necromancer, and the brand new Blood Knight still to come. So what's the matter? She wants to lay down. Here, girl. Lay down. There you go. And there we go. She likes to be covered up. It's just her thing. All right. To the Crusader. Sweep attack. Damage increased by 8%. Cooldown reduced to 6 from 9 from sweep attack. And Sacred Chain. Cooldown reduced to 10 from 12. Projectile movement speed is also increased. Let's talk about some item upgrades here. Sweep attack cooldown reduced from 6 to 9. Cool. Long palm, a couple of items here. Sweep attack maximum charges increased by 20%. Damage increased. Sweep attack maximum damage increased by 13. Sweep attack maximum damage increased by 23. Wow. I guess no one's using sweep attack. Sacred Chain projectile movement speed is increased from those pieces of gear listed. We have Sacred Chain cooldown reduced from 10 seconds from 12 to reduced to 10 from 12. Sacred Chain cooldown reduced from 6 to 12. Wow. Sacred Chain stun duration increased to 4 seconds from 3. Delay time for damage and stun to occur is reduced to 1 second from 1.5 from the recreant. Shield charge damage to shielded enemies increased to 350 from 250%. Enemy players hit by Falling Sword can now be chained up for 2.5 seconds. Falling Sword maximum charges are increased by 20%. And Sacred Chain's damage increased by 100%. We just featured a Crusader build on the channel last week, which really utilized Falling Sword. That build has just gotten instantly stronger. With this being said, the Crusader has not beaten out the Monk, in my opinion, on buffs from this update. Looks like we're diving to the Necro, which is getting 4 skill upgrades. Bone Spikes. Charge time reduced to 1/2 second from 1. Stun duration increased to 3 seconds from 2. Oh man. I just think getting stuck in PvP against the Necro. Corpse Lance. Now you can be cast while moving. Great. Grim Scythe. Cooldown reduced to 6 from 9. Very good. Borrowed Time. Increase the maximum HP loss per second from 5% to 10%. when cast on self. The effect is the same when cast on allies. I like that. So, changes to the items themselves. Explosion damage increased by 15% can now be cast while moving. Corpse Explosion is getting a little stronger. Nice. Bone Wall damage increased by 28% and the duration increased from 6 to 3. So Bone Wall is going to last for 6 seconds now and be 28% stronger? Wow. Bone Wall damage increased by 60%. Corpse generation increased from 2 to 1. You also have to think of how many of these items can you have equipped at the same time? Like, can you have the Filth Spurs, Squalor, and the Cage of Chum equipped at the same time? If so, that's incredible. Corpse Lance now can be cast while moving. We saw that one. Corpse Lance maximum charges increased by 12%. Maximum damage increased by 23%. Dark Curse removes all beneficial effects from enemies from 1. Oh, wow. So you can now remove from all the enemies instead of just one enemy. Incredible. Wraith Form cooldown reduced to 6 seconds from 9. Charges are increased by 1. Targeting enemy is no longer required. Attack animation speed is increased. Wow. Grim Scythe cooldown reduced from 6 to 9. Grim Scythe attack animation increased. Grim Scythe chill effectiveness increased 50 to 30%. 50 to 50 from 30. And Grim Scythe shattered armor duration increased to 6 seconds from 3. I will tell you this though. It seems that the Necro has received 0 buffs to any of the spawned items, you know, to their attack golem, to their command skeletons, to their whatever that scythe thing was. But they're buffing it in many other ways. Interesting. I wonder how different we're going to see some Necro builds thrown out with this. And oh my god, check out all these changes to the Blood Knight, which is the class I'm currently playing as. Let's go through these to sum up this video. This may be the class with the biggest. So far, I think the Monk and the Necro both got the biggest buffs out of all in the video so far today. But diving into the Blood Knight, can it take the cake? So, skill changes. Ravage. First strike damage increased by 10%. Second strike damage increased by 15%. Third strike increased by 25%. Annihilation. First and second strike damage increased by 11. Third and fourth increased by 38%. Wow. Shroud of Night. Effect duration increased to 12 seconds from 8. Abomination. Abomination is the coolest skill in the game, but one that just doesn't seem as effective as it should be for the Blood Knight, maybe because people treat it more like a ultimate than a skill. Let's see. Attack speed. Primary attack speed increased by 20%. Primary attack damage increased by 9%. Cooldown reduced to 15 seconds from 20. Lifesteal is increased by 10%. Wow. Yeah, I think I'm going to be switching to Abomination today. Abomination, Blood Rush damage increased by 25%. Abomination, Shattering Fist, first and second attack damage increased by 44%. Third attack by 64%. Holy gosh. Mephitic Cloud, cooldown reduced from 15 to 20. Oh, that one I'm actually using. That would be the one I would take out to utilize Abomination. And Shadow's Edge and Shadow's Embrace, ultimate damage reduced by 6%. Oh, these are the primary attacks. Damage reduction for being hit by multiple projectiles increased from 90 to 80. So, a little bit less damage, but a little bit more protection is what we're seeing. Abomination getting a massive buff right there, guys. And the items. Ravage decreased, Ravage damage increased by 52%. Spear Fury damage increased by 30%. Short dash towards the enemies has been re-added. Skewer animation speed increased. While charging Skewer, you're immune to knockback and loss of control. Tendrils of Blood cooldown reduced to 12 from 15. Swarm of Bats, I love this one. This is for bats and men both. Swarm of Bats projectile speed increased. Can now be cast while moving. Shroud of Night effect duration increased to 12 from 8. Umbral Lance range increased to 10 yards from 8. And animation speed. Dash damage increased by 93%. Throw damage increased by 37%. Wow. Umbral Lance Void Spear now lands after a half of a second, up from 1 second. Knockback damage was reduced. Whirling Strike attack animation increased. Whirling Strike damage increased by 13%. Whirling Strike damage increased by 18%. Blast's travel range increased to 9 yards from 7. Woo! That is all of the changes, and it's a little bit confusing as you read through them, but I think we began to understand a little bit more as we went on and on throughout the video. In my opinion, it does seem like the Monk, the Necromancer, and the Blood Knight got the biggest changes inside of the game, and I'm thinking right now, as far as PvP goes, that Bone Wall change on the Necromancer is going to be brutal for people inside of PvP. I think that may be one of the biggest changes inside of the game, but the only way we can tell is if we dive on in, play our classes, redo our builds, change our essences, and enjoy Diablo Immortal. These kind of updates are a lot of fun. You could look forward to more build videos that'll include all of the things that we discussed here today in future videos. If you enjoyed this one, consider subscribing for Diablo Immortal videos every single day.